Back in 1991 and 1992, Terminator 2 Judgment Day was a pop culture force to be reckoned with. T2 broke box office records and won awards, pioneered computer effects in movie making, and tells an incredible story. It was also masterfully marketed, sweeping across the interests of a rather wide audience, from teenagers watching Arnold Schwarzenegger's T-800 in a Guns N' Roses music video to younger kids collecting and playing with the action figures. And of course, there was the video games. Each home gaming platform had a Terminator 2 game, some sort of scroll screen game that basically follows the scenes of the movie, but didn't really stand apart from other action games. But one mark of a true 90s youth is the tale of when they first set eyes on the T2 shooting game in their local arcade. Maybe it was the design of the cabinet or the realistic graphics, sounds, and gun kickback, but playing that game was intense, to say the least. TJ joined me to talk T2 at Banded Brewing in Biddeford, Maine a few weeks ago, but we focused on the Sega Genesis version of the arcade hit, which honestly didn't pack the same punch as the cabinet version. However, it still stands as a noticeable landmark on the 1990s pop culture horizon. Alright, so I am here with TJ at Banded Brewing in Biddeford, Maine, which is the most fun place to say over and over again. And we're going to talk about, well, what was the item that you selected today?
It's a Terminator 2 Judgment Day Sega Genesis cartridge.
And they got to a point where they didn't even have to write out the whole name of the movie either.
No, it was just T2.
Everyone just knew it was T2. That was it. No need for it to be spelled out for you. And this is the Sega Genesis arcade game put onto the Sega Genesis. So I have a feeling that both of us probably had a very similar experience when the first time we saw the arcade version of this. But why don't you go tell me your first reaction when you saw the arcade game of T2?
Dumping dollars and dollars into the first level and never been able to get by the first level.
It was
unbelievably hard.
It was so scary too.
And I don't know why. Like, how much money do they want you with? Was level 2 a lot easier if you got there? I don't know.
It probably was.
Right.
Just
a grenade.
Walking through a mall, like it's the mall scene.
I saw Terminator 2 when I was way too young, So for years at daycare or wherever I was drawing, only thing I ever drew was the flashback scenes to the war of Terminator 2.
It was so captivating. I remember I saw that movie. I was probably 9 or 10 when I saw it. And I think as I was watching, I'm like, I'm surprised I'm being allowed to watch this right now. Right. For whatever reason, my parents were okay with it. Because they had toys. They had action figures, marketed to little kids of the Terminator.
Right, Arnold, right?
Yeah. They had the T-800 exoskeleton, endoskeleton, whatever it is, the skeleton guy. And, they had all the characters. And I remember friends in my class, I was in 5th grade, and they had the toys. And then, we watched the movie, and I thought it was brilliant. I didn't, it was violent, and we, had to look away at certain parts. But the overall message of the movie is so awesome and so strong, and yet then you go to the video game in the arcade, it's just a free-for-all shoot-'em-up.
Right. There's no plot anymore.
None of that is mentioned at all. There's no no fate but what we make for ourselves. It's just.
I like that they tried to go back and make the War of the Robots with the Christian Bale version. Right. Because what I always wanted to see. Yeah. But that movie wasn't any good.
But then that came out in a time period that was really bad for those kinds of movies.
Right.
And, I was excited for that too. I remember when that was being advertised, I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Because T3 was just a garbage dump. That was just unwatchable. That
wasn't fair.
And then when they did the Christian Bale one, I'm like, okay, Batman, being in, I could see this, it could work. John Connor.
And Mick G. Remember Mick G?
Yeah.
Was the director.
Right. I'm like, oh, that's the guy who also did Charlie's Angels.
Coming hot off Charlie's Angels.
We should probably known better then.
Give him $200 million to make a Terminator movie.
I think Charlie's Angels is the most 2000s movie ever made. With the weird CGI stuff for no reason. But yeah, this video game, when that came out, I don't even think it was I don't think it was exactly at the same time as the movie. I think it was a little bit after the movie, probably a year or two later.
Things took a lot longer back then.
Right.
You know?
To develop it.
Right.
And I don't remember any build up to it, because I mean, how do you really market an arcade game? You don't. It's just like, it just shows up.
So I feel like the video games of the 90s have the same problem of movies from now, is that Sega paid so much to adapt for the rights to adapt the video game, then the video game, they don't have any money to spend on the game, so the game comes out and it's garbage. Right, same thing happened with that. Remember Judge Dredd?
Yes.
I was really excited about the Judge Dredd video game, and it's really bad.
Yeah,
it's just like Mario with a gun, you know?
And it was like squunched down.
And they would make these really bad video game adaptations of movies, and now it's the other way, where they're making really bad movie adaptations of video games.
Right.
Except The Last of Us. Really good.
They can't seem to get it right. There's a few that are really good. You know, I think a lot of the Disney ones did carry over pretty well.
What's the best video adaptation or movie adaptation of video games?
So going the other way.
Going the other way.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to say because I stopped watching them after a while. But it says something. Actually, one of the first episodes I ever did of my podcast was about the Mortal Kombat movie. And I think it was like episode 2. And it was like, not the game, but the movie. And it was like, and I honestly, I've never really seen the whole thing. I've just seen parts of it. But it was still like, it says something about the time period that, you know, for the longest time, movies, they would pull their ideas from books. And then it was TV shows. And then it was, you know, books have always been there. But then somewhere around the 90s, they're like, all right, video games. Because they had story components to them. They're like, okay, like Mortal Kombat does kind of have a story. You can make a movie out of it. A really bad movie, but it's still a story. Going the other direction, Terminator 2, there was, I think, a Genesis version. I know there's definitely a Nintendo version of the story of the movie turned into a game, and it was really bad. It wasn't good at all. It was really hard. I remember over and over again failing on the level where you're supposed to be trying to rescue John Connor from, you know, going through the canals in Los Angeles, you know, that thing.
Yeah.
And for some reason, the Terminator, the unstoppable Terminator, kept dying as he would slam into a fence. And I'm like, I don't think that would stop him. I'm pretty sure he would be able to keep going, but that would...
It was electrified.
It was, yeah, he's like...
liquid metal fence.
You know, he would... he wouldn't keep going. So I was like, I didn't like that. When I saw this game in the arcade, they even go one step farther. If you look at the cartridge, they actually show the game. The arcade game.
The actual arcade game.
Just so they know, it's like, all right, if you've gotten this far, you bought the box, or you're renting it, and you're about to put it into your machine, you're like, yes, this is the one from the arcade. It's not the garbage that you played elsewhere. So, I don't know, what do you think? Because the game in the arcade is not the movie. What did they...
Well, I don't know. I've literally never seen past level 1. I don't know how to get past level 1.
The home version is a little bit easier. Obviously, because you don't have to spend extra money on it.
Right.
Keep hitting. And it's not nearly as intense. I remember that was the thing about the arcade game. Yeah. And like those faces would just show up. And then like
pop right up
golden ones for some reason.
Do you remember the thing that I don't know if there was more than one made like after it, but then there was the Aerosmith game, which was the exact same game, just with CDs.
X.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
Same game.
I was on a Wikipedia tangent a couple weeks ago, and I looked up that exact thing. And turns out, first of all, the woman in Revolution X, the mistress, whatever, like a dominatrix type thing, she played Sonya in Mortal Kombat. Like she's been in a bunch of other stuff.
In the video game or in the movie?
The video game.
Video game.
Because in the movie, it's the woman from Billy Madison.
Oh, that's right.
And
which I just watched before I came here today.
Look at how it's like. It's not quite a circle. It's like a figure eight. Everything just kind of, it's like this. It's the symbol for infinity. Everything just like wraps into each other. So, you're right. Revolution X was identical game. Literally has nothing to do with Aerosmith, other than
every once in a while they're playing in the background of a titty bar.
And even that, it's like they're not. They never came across to me as a band that would have ultra violence connected to them. Like, don't you think like Megadeth or Metallica would have a lot more to do with the game where there's blood and guts everywhere?
But Aerosmith has always just been sellouts. Can you be a sellout as a rock band? But Like they've always been. Once I found out Aerosmith didn't write any of their own music, I got really disappointed.
It's like they're ready to go at any time.
Yeah, they were just a.
You have a video game.
Yeah. How much? Nailed it.
Well, they got the roller coaster in Disney World for a while. You know, like,
they probably have a restaurant somewhere.
A roller coaster.
Right. Ride it. Woo.
Every time. So, this game, the material it's made from, both I guess the movie and the original game itself, the arcade game. What does that tell you about the time period that those two things were received so well? That people were all about the movie, and then the game was like an event. I remember the arcades that had it were like, there was crowds around it, that people were like watching. When you played it, you were in this like tunnel thing. Like you couldn't see the rest of the arcade, so you were like drawn into.
It's a very like visceral thing because it was like the best game to play at all the arcades. And then sometimes you show up and one of them is broken, you know, and it was just really disappointing. You have to play by yourself,
right? Which is terrifying because
right.
I have no help.
I'm not going to win, right?
Even the people in the front,
right?
Like your allies on the other humans who you accidentally shoot and they're like, ow! Like they yell at you.
I feel like back then, maybe they were just taking whatever it was and slapping it into a Sega cartridge.
Yeah.
You know, without, I don't know what to say without much thought, but, you know, it was really easy to do back then.
Because this did not have the same effect on me. When I put it into the Genesis and played it with it, and it's like light out.
Right.
And I'm
you need
like,
a rumble pack, I think, because the shaking
yeah,
part
if you wanted
big,
it, you could make an experience.
And like, I mean, how often do you get to hold a gun?
Right.
You know, you're holding the big,
especially a futuristic machine gun
shoots
thing.
grenades from the sides, and
right.
You know, I think they try to capture that, and they've always been trying to take it's like immediate nostalgia. Right. Remember last week when you were at the arcade? We can do it at home now, right? They've always been trying to, I think, package that and
it was an awkward age for that kind of stuff because even Mortal Kombat, when it moved over to the home version, it was just like a pale version.
Right,
of itself.
right.
It was
AC, ABB. Remember that? It was a blood
you
code.
Could easily do the quick fatalities.
You ever played the Lion King Super Nintendo game?
Yes.
Which is like impossible to play.
Those are one of the ones I think actually translate pretty well.
Right. I mean, like
Aladdin, the Genesis
fun,
and Super Nintendo games were really good. Like even if they didn't have a movie attached to it, it would be just a fun game.
Yeah.
You know,
Jurassic Park.
The
Jurassic Park Sega game was,
and they made like a couple versions of that.
Yeah.
Because it's like they made one that was with the Raptors' point of view. Or something.
Right. The playing the Raptors was like it was really hard, but super fun. You could eat little tiny dinosaurs. That was a fun game.
That was like the height of. I feel like Genesis. You know, like I have this Genesis game here also, the NBA Jam, which is also lit up right behind us. And
play when we're done
it's
here.
standing right on top of Jurassic Park, the VHS copy of Jurassic Park that I brought. It's all packaged into like one like age and era where it was this perfect like overlap period between authentic and real and then getting into the more CGI. And like Terminator 2 is just that too. That's the battle going on in the movie. You have the old model Terminator fighting the CGI generated
version.
One, and it's almost like they're duking it out for our approval, and like ultimately it's the old model that wins and the new model has to wait its turn, kind of thing.
I was like 10 when this came out, so it's all like that time where everything that happens just seems like that is the truth, where like the middle school is only like 3 years, but it like seems really long. So like everything that happened in like those early 90s, like at the time, just seems like that's how the world works. Not like don't question it that much. It was like Judge Dredd was actually, like I mentioned before, was the one that like where I was really like, oh, they're not looking out for me. They're just here to make $1. This is really disappointing because I really like the Judge Dredd movie.
That's the one with Stallone, right?
Right. Yeah. And that's where I was like, well, it's not authentic. They're just packing it in there and seeing what they can sell, and some of it they care more about and some of it they care less about. I feel like somebody really liked this version of the game where they're like, we should do this like we can put this thing at home.
Like it's a big hit in the arcade.
Right.
Let's see what
I wish it was on Nintendo 64 where they had the Rumble Pack.
Right.
You could,
I don't think Nintendo would have touched it. To be
honest
because they were all about, because when Mortal Kombat, like they reluctantly took on Mortal Kombat, and their big thing was, we'll have Mortal Kombat, but instead of blood, it'll be sweat.
Right. Oh, is that what it was?
It was like this grayish,
Yeah.
blue thing would come off the guys, and I'm like, man, they're sweating a lot, when they get punched. And it's, I think that's a good way of putting it. It's like, this comes from an era of, like, and obviously for adults, they didn't see it the same way, but when you're growing up in an era like that, everything that's fed to you, you're like, yeah, this is shaping the way I see the world. Like, this is exactly, and so, like even if in video game form, this is going to be worthy of making an impact on me, of the message of Terminator 2. I remember seeing clips of later stages, and like you end up at like Cyberdyne, and I'm like, I don't remember Terminators running around. And,
right. It's everywhere.
Like, but I want to say, to some degree, we were just talking about Terminator 3. I think that may have actually shown up in that movie, because there is a part like that where they go to, in Terminator 3, they go to the facility where Claire Danes' dad works.
Yeah.
And there's some like prototypes of the different hunter killers, the HKs.
Oh yeah.
And
yeah.
they're like chasing them down and stuff. And I'm like, I wonder if when writing that movie, they were influenced at all by the video game kind of thing. It's the same thing like the Jurassic Park game. There's actually some components of the Jurassic Park game that are truer to the book.
Yeah, I was going to say, like the river chase scene is the one,
exactly.
Which then they later put in Jurassic Park 3.
Yeah.
Which,
And so this is like a whole lesson on like how media was very, to borrow a term from Terminator, self-aware.
Right.
In that era of like, all right, we might not be able to fit it into the movie Jurassic Park. We'll make it up to them and we'll put it into the game. Right. And then, because we know there's some people that are bringing their copy of Michael Crichton's Jurassic Park to the theater to, right. Page by page, like, oh, wait, hold on. I don't see this part in here. We'll make it up to them later. We'll put it in later. And then we'll put it in the game. How about that? We'll cover our bases that way. And it seems to be like heading that direction, only opposite now, where like, have you seen the Star Wars prequel or sequel movies, like the ones with Rey and Poe? Yeah. I was lost in a lot of those. Like, I didn't know a lot of stuff was going on. And people are like, well, you need to read the books. There's a whole series of books that will help you. I'm like, I shouldn't have to read books before I go see the movie. And, because now it's like, it's front-loaded now, where it's like, you have to prepare to get one piece of media by going around for other pieces of media. Whereas, like, I don't think this game introduced new elements of Terminator.
No, right.
If anything, it probably like boil it down to its essentials. All right, see if you can follow me on this. This conversation with TJ about T2 went twice as long as my usual shorts. So in 1 week, you'll hear part 2 of this conversation about T2, the video game. Of course, you can hear it early by 7 days by going over to one of 2 places. patreon.com/EPSpodcast or epspodcast.substack.com and becoming a subscriber. I'll be back on Thursday with a full length and then with part 2 of T2 on Tuesday. Hasta la vista.